Hi, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us once again. I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, which is going to be, I think, an extremely important one and a really informative one for so many of us. And I think, as many of you know, I hope, June is Pride Month, a chance to celebrate our LGBTQIA members of our community and the history, the legacy, and the effort that comes with trying to make sure that we finally get to a place of lived equality throughout our nation. What I think many people don't know is necessarily why June is Pride Month and the role that Black trans women of color have played in this movement. And so I am so thrilled today to have Sheika Babin joining us, resident of Quincy, member of Quincy Pride, and one of the leaders of this movement. And Sheika, I want to kick it to you for a longer introduction, but also to tell us a bit about this movement and this moment. So take it away.
All right. Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm Sheika Babin. I'm the president of Quincy Pride. It is a 501c3. We have a board of about 10 people, and we've been in existence for we're in our third year. When I was approached with Pride and the leadership role, I was very excited. Often, like trans are not really offered the top roles in a lot of these organizations or clubs. And so I saw it as an opportunity, not only as an opportunity to serve my community and give back, but an opportunity to be an example, a role model. So I'm very pleased to be here. And I must say that Quincy has welcomed me with open arms, been very supportive. As a result of me being president of Quincy Pride, I'm also a part of the Quincy City LGBT Commission, led by Nina Lang, our city council president. So it's a great opportunity. The community here is great. They are very welcoming. We've had a great deal of success. Last year at our Pride event, we had over 2,000 attendees with about 30 vendors, and that was very successful. What I wanted to say was that in addition to what drew me to this, again, if you want change, you have to be a part of change. And so that change starts with the conversation, getting involved, and being a part of the effort. And that's what I see that I'm doing in a subtle way, but part of a collective movement as well.
And so she could tell us a little bit about the role that Black trans women of color have played in this movement, and in the history that they helped make to make Pride what it is today.
Well, I want to go back to Martha P. Johnson, who actually was the lead that caused the uprise in the Stonewall event. Here again, you have a transgender woman, Black, being suppressed, being unable to live their life fully, totally, as who they are. And so at one point, you can suppress a part of a total sum so long. We're a part of society no matter how you look at it. And we need to be represented and accounted for and be able to live life wholly and have equity in being able to contribute to society. And I believe that a part of the suppression that took place in the 1963 effort, it just came to a boil. And it was time to say enough. We need to move forward. We need to move beyond constraints, limits, and prevent without access. And so that's where I feel we are today. We have lived, we have coexisted, but are we living fully? Are we really a part of the conversations that are happening to shape policy and change in our world today? Are we a collective? Are we a part of the collective efforts? Do we have a seat at the table?
And so Marsha Johnson, who's, as for those that are familiar, through, as they say, the shot glass heard around the world, that actually helped catalyze that the demonstrations and protests at Stonewall that led into this larger movement, and that became the manifestation of Pride on the annual celebration of Stonewall, that then has merged into Pride Month around the country.
Absolutely. It has morphed into so much more. It morphed into a movement which brought about awareness. That awareness brought about an effort to educate everyone about the LGBT community, and then there put on the roadmap the month of June as Pride Month, signaling for me, I think, is a month to say, hey, this is a part of our society. This group of people should live freely. They should live their lives totally as contributors to society.
And I hear you say that, and obviously those are the values that we try to celebrate in Pride in the Fight that we search for every day. I was stunned, I think, as anybody would be, when you find out that the average life expectancy for a Black trans woman of color in the United States today is 35 years old. So we have a long way to go to live out those values, to make sure that this is a land of equal opportunity for everybody.
Sure. So let me talk about that a little minute, if I could, Joe.
Please.
There's a struggle being a Black American to some degree, especially given your pedigree, where you're raised, and the access that you have to further your education, further your goals, and aspire and to achieve your dreams. There's a movie called Torchstone Trilogy. I don't know if everyone remembers, but there are several statements in that movie that are really critical. And one of them is, there are easier things in life to be than being LGBTQ. It is not a sickness. It is not a disease. It is really, I'm not sure what happens. You were born into this world, and you know that within your being, you are someone else. And so I think in the Black community that I grew up in, and I've been a part of different communities. I grew up in the projects. I came up out of the projects and was able to live a comfortable life in society, educate myself, and move on. But it did not mitigate me having to go through a number of challenges. One, when people know that you're trans, they don't understand how to accept you. They don't know how to deal with you, how to put you in a flock, rather than treating you just like any other individual and having you earn your credits like we all need to. I remember when I worked at Fidelity Investments, I worked and partnered with an attorney. And at that time, he said to me, he said, Sheika, you have to teach people how to treat you. And if you don't do that, then people will make assumptions about you. And I think that's what we have to do in life. We have to treat people how to treat us. We're not a threat to society. We're not demons. We're not these people. We are just people looking to have equity, have access, and to live a life and contribute and give back to society.
Thank you for that, Sheika. And so as we think about this moment, and as we think about our communities, how are you planning to celebrate Pride this month in Quincy, and what does that look like?
Well, of course, with the COVID-19, that really puts a damper on what we can do. Our festival that we normally have in Pageant Field, we've had to put that on hold this year. But what the committee has done is they've come together around a strategy to provide a series of online events that we've offered to the community. We recently just had our online drag brunch. We had a online storytelling, and we're planning to have an online town hall meeting. So we're doing little things. What happened is that one of the board members came up with an idea. Normally, when we have our Pride event, our community, our neighbors come together and they reach out, or we reach out to them, and they say, give us a sign so we can post it on our yard that the Pride Festival is happening. And so that's been a way for us to get the word out. Unfortunately, this year we couldn't do a lot of that just because of the quarantine. But what we did is we partnered with the Church of Presidents here in Quincy, and we put a very nice display of a lovely heart in the Pride flags, and we were able to put our signage up there. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback about it, and we've gotten, it was even featured in the Patriot Ledger and the Sun here in Quincy.
Good for you. Good for you. And And obviously, the impact of COVID has thrown a lot of plans. I normally bring a couple hundred people when we march in the Pride Parade in Boston, and there's thousands of people that march, and there's tens of thousands of people that line those streets. It's a celebration of Pride, and unfortunately, that can't happen. But we're also at this seminal moment again, racially, in this country.
Yes.
We talked a moment about the life expectancy for Black trans women of color specifically. We also know that there's been 14 reported, and I say reported, so this is known, murders of trans and gender nonconforming people since the start of 2020. And just about the last week or 10 days, we've seen 2 murders of one of Dominique Fells in Philadelphia and the other of Rhea Milton in Cincinnati. So Sheika, how do we, given the additional threat that Black trans women of color live under, and the additional obstacles, how is it that our communities here in Massachusetts can be better allies to members of a trans community and Black trans community?
I think what's taking place today is having the conversation, being willing to come to the table, to hear about the inequities, the lack of access, to hear about a system that doesn't work for everybody. That conversation should occur all the way from our local mayors, our local city and town officials, our local businesses, to understand what is causing this segment of a total sum, a total population, to not exist and live cohesively in this city and enjoy living. One of the wonderful things about Massachusetts is such a great city, very diverse, lots of rich history. But there are segments of this population, and that some of that population is the Black trans, that does not, it's not afforded, either because of lack of access of workplace access, education access, or what have you. That needs to be addressed.
And so I'd love your advice personally, obviously as a privileged white guy. What advice would you give to me and to others like me about how we can be better allies at this moment as well?
Great question. I think first is continue to be part of the conversation. Be a part of the collective coalitions, aware of the different groups, to understand and hear the issues, and then being a part of the collective that can bring about the change. One of the wonderful things that just recently happened is at the federal level, is that the act was that we are now protected. We can't be terminated because of who we are. That is a great, huge step. And so now that we have the conversation going, we need to look at locally, what are the systems that are preventing equity?
And that's a lot of systems, right?
We have to take them one at a time. And that's the part too. It's like, we have the marches, we have the uprise of suppression, whether overt or inadvertent. There's been a suppression with respect to the Black trans community. So now the Black trans community, we have to come to the table and have that conversation and create a roadmap of creating incremental change that will lead to the type of equity that we want to have.
And so, Sheika, if for those folks that are going to be watching this and hopefully having some learning something about the importance of Black trans women of color in this movement and the history of it, and why this moment is so important, and how we can be better allies, what do you think is the most important thing? What else would you want folks to know?
Yeah, one of the things I would say for those that are hiring managers, change happens because someone steps forward and they're bold, and they have a vision. And it's, I say to different managers, when you're doing your interviews and you may come across a trans woman, look at the vision of your operations and your organization. Can this person fit into this organization? Can they be integrated into your culture and your system and work? Why does it have to be that it is a flat out no? I have seen a number of transgenders no. It is like a joke that they're even applying for a job. And
Really?
so changing our mindset about how we view transgender people.
And what, just obviously that it's easier said than done.
It's
right?
easier said than done. But first we have to have the conversation to accept and look at the reality of the situation. Once we look at the reality of what's happening, then we have to own how can we change it.
That's exactly right. And I think, Sheika, I think in my own journey on this in advocacy, it's my own take on it. There is no substitute in my work now in Washington. My first ask to folks that are not, well, let me put it this way. You probably would not be surprised. Maybe you would be. But when I talk to some of my more conservative colleagues and say, hey, have you, how familiar are you with transgender rights and transgender identity and transgender movement? And they'll say, not really. And I say, well, have you ever met a member of the transgender community? I'll say, no. And some won't go quite so far as to say, well, there aren't any in my district, but because obviously there are.
There are.
But the fact that folks haven't. And so normally my first ask is, well, would you just meet with somebody? Would you meet from somebody in your district that will just talk to you about what their life experience is being trans? And the obstacles that our government, federal, state, local, puts before them to be able to experience some semblance of lived equality. And yes, we celebrate a Supreme Court, a milestone in the Supreme Court on Monday.
Yes.
Monday or Tuesday, now that I'm getting my days mixed up, but earlier this week. But we still have a long way to go.
We do.
Long way to go. But it is because of the courage of people like you that we are making progress. Because after you engage with a member of our community, just on the most basic human level and saying, what is life like? It's awfully hard to turn back around and try to justify those barriers. It's awfully hard to listen to a policymaker trying to say 35 years old for expected life expectancy is okay.
That is not okay. It is not okay. And the suffrage that Black trans are subjected to is just unbelievable. But there are also a number of variables that lead to some of those situations. But I think by having the conversation, sitting down, do you realize that Black trans are just as intellectual as the next person? Okay, so that right there, we may have common values that you don't even know about. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. But the perception is that we're kind of demons, and that's not the case.
No, it is not. No, it is not. As human as everybody else, and deserving of rights as everybody else. And last time I checked, those words etched in stone above the doors of the Supreme Court, equal justice under law, was meant to apply to everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love my community. I love the LGBT community. I love the trans community as a whole. I just wish that we had better access for our Black trans. And so I think my part is collaborating with you in this effort. And I want to thank you again for having me and having this conversation. It means a lot. And I'm hoping that this conversation will change and reshape or cause folks to pause for a second and say, well, let me take another look. Maybe let me call Joe and say, set up the meeting, let's have the meeting, you know, to get insight. So
let's hope so. Sheika, thank you for joining. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for raising your voice as you always do. I'm truly grateful to you.
Thank you so much for having me.